Hi everyone, how are you doing? A morning session completed. Not a lot of things on the session this morning, but certainly everything at this year's Olympics, clearly, clearly important. Some surprises here in terms of athletes who did not make it through. Jamaica failing to make the final of the men's 4x100 meter relay. Be honest with you, and didn't necessarily see that one coming, even in the absence of an oblique civil. I was more concerned about the women not making it through. Ultimately, they did. Certainly not a great championship so far for Jamaica when you consider the events on the track, field events, different situation. Thomas Dodd and Cameron not making it through as well for Jamaica in the women's shot put, and post interviews, obviously, from Thomas Dodd suggesting her frustration, hurt. You could see it. We can talk about that as well. USA going through in both relays. Not necessarily the greatest of baton exchanges you need, but I don't think the United States would worry about their baton exchanges. I think they should comfortably win both of these relay. The exchange from Coleman to Fred Curley was not the best, but they have enough foot speed. The team is too strong not to win by just safely getting the baton around. Probably not as it's similar to the Jamaican teams that of yesteryear, anchored by Usain Bolt or even Asafa Powell, where there's just enough to get the baton around, and you should see a victory there. And I think in this situation, that's probably what they'll do on both men and women's side, so they should be fine. Yeah, the heptathlon also underway. We can talk about that. The top three are there. You know, Hawkins are not doing so well, but we can talk more about that. Thanks everyone for joining. I don't know your thoughts on this morning session. How you guys feeling in terms of what's been happening and whether or not yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, I've been shocked about the Jamaican performances so far. Some of it seems very unfortunate, some of it seems in a different way, and we can even unpack a little bit more, as I mentioned, what Thomas Dowd had to say. I don't think she's happy in the slightest. Yeah, this is big day for track and field again later on in the evening session when I'll be back. We'll have 110-meter hurdle final for men. There's the 400-meter women on tap later on. It's going to be a really great evening. Semifinals of the 1500 as well. Long jump final for women, a javelin final for men, and 200-meter final. That should be another big event later on this evening. But yeah, so let's get into some of the results. I'll just go with that and hear from you in any way you want to talk about. And so, just for full measure, let's do the combined points here for the women's decathlon before we get into the 4x1. So this is where we are in the decathlon. Katharina Johnson Thompson in the lead, KJT there. One of the special athletes we've seen over the many years. Unfortunately for her, she's on and off with injury, but on her way, leading now slightly over Nifitayam there from Belgium, who, if were she to win this, would probably edge herself as probably second all time for me. I don't know. It's one of those things, but certainly one of the great athletes there. The US's Anna Hall as well in the mix. Lots of promise with Hall. Injury also curtailed her season last year into this year, and she's back and hopefully fighting for something there. If all of these three women are on fire, you expect some stuff. Norv Witz always in the mix as well. The big issue here too is that I wasn't having Hawkins there from the United States probably doing much, but I like her, and having no height in the high jump is just tragic. You could see the frustration on her face this morning. She couldn't believe it happened, and my heart goes out to her and to any athlete who obviously suffers some tough stuff there. So, but the big three are out already. I didn't anticipate that. Niffy didn't look so good in 100-meter hurdles for me, but I mean, high jump wise, she's pretty good. KJT is also pretty good over high jump. They could have probably gone a bit higher, but But I think this is a good start for them, and we'll see them later on this evening and pushing on forward in terms of what kind of medals that's going to go. I get to comments. What's up? A flying wing says, "Where do you think Tobago will finish in the 200 meters?" Whew, I got to tell you. I think he's on the podium for sure. It's going to be interesting. It's going to go down. Here I think initially I said Tobago could have won it all if he was fresh and ready to go. I don't know. I think the way Liles has been running is interesting, but I don't know what kind of is Liles okay? There was some mention yesterday, and I didn't follow up on it, so I can't really speculate. After his semifinal run, maybe he was feeling something. I don't know if that's been confirmed, so I can't really speculate much. I think silver medal for me at minimum for Let's See Tobago is probably a good place to go. I think Kung Fu Kenny will get on the podium too. He might be upset at his performance as well in the 100 meters, but also strangely enough, it's the first time for Bednarak there doing the double at a major championship. So we also have to see how his body performs. He did well to get into the final there of the 100 meters. I anticipated him much higher up the podium, but that's one of the not on the podium, but much higher placement there in the final. But that's how it goes. I think Tobago has everything to really run a super fast 200 meters. We've seen evidence of that. National record in the 100 meters this year. Probably disappointed for not getting on the podium. 44.2 over 400 meters. Interesting there. Suggests that he's in some good capacity work there. World best, 300 meters. If Let's Sealy doesn't finish second or so, I suspect that could be considered disappointment. I think he could push to win it all. I think it's competitive. I'm concerned whether or not when you do the double, if you can actually run faster than 19.5 or getting into those 19.4s. We often don't recognize how difficult that is. So he's in the mix, certainly to do something special. So I think that's where do you have him finishing on the podium? And thank you guys for liking the video. Where do you have him on the podium? But he should be an interesting athlete. He should walk away with a medal for sure. Yeah. So back to some other stuff there. There was some repechage rounds in the 100 meters to 110-meter hurdles. But I want to go in a little bit on the shot put. The shot put is interesting. I want to talk about it in two ways. I'll show you the summary of it, and then we can talk about issues as well. Before I get into that, a flying wing says, I think he will finish second. Yeah, I think he should be locked on for second. It's hard to see anybody else other than Noah Lyles winning. 200 meters is his baby. And he would be more than chuffed after winning the 100 meters and going into this to run a fantastic race. The only way Lyles loses this probably in his mind is if you go way out on him and he just can't keep. You have to be at least a tenth of a second better than him if you're gonna beat him. And I don't know if that's possible right now. He looks in supreme shape as well. Unless he's suffering with something, I think probably Noah would win it. But prior to the Olympics, I just had a strange feeling that Tobago could pull it off, but I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know. But I anticipate him on the medal podium. If he's not on the medal podium in a silver medal position, then probably underperformance would be what I would say. But he's still young, so it's not something that we can be ultra critical of. He's a very young individual. He's going through a lot this season, well documented already. His mom passed away. So you just don't really know, right? And the Olympic Games is a big event. And I mean, he's been at major championships before, so it's not that of an adjustment, I don't think. But we shall see. We shall see. Let's talk a little bit about the shot put. The shot put this morning, really interesting. I just want to zoom all the way down to this position here, number 17 in the summary. Look at that. Chase Jackson. That, my friends, is the biggest shock of the morning. I watched the shot put. I didn't understand what happened to Jackson. Sure on medal, usually. Could have won it all. Not sure should have won it all this year, but definitely if you're lining up the women you anticipate winning, she's there. There's no question about it. She's there. And that that was a shocker, to be honest with you. Very much a shocker. I don't know what happened to her, to be honest with you. Just couldn't get it right. Some fall throws there. A lot of women not getting it the way they probably wanted it to happen this morning. But for Chase not to make it through and to only throw 1760, yeah, that is an underperformance by every level there. And so going to be sad that she won't be there. Let's go through the top first before we come down. Obviously, we have Sarah Mitten, who I think should win it all too. Probably really in great shape. Could probably throw a couple big 20s. And so Veshe there from New Zealand. Good to see her. Definitely inspiration there from the great Valerie Adams, who I think is the greatest shot putter of all time. Clearly, if you look at the numbers, it's a different story. But if you understand the sport, you realize a lot of those great all-time best in shot put occurred in a different era, and I don't want to go through that tonight. She going through Ogan Lie there from Germany too. I think she's interesting. Jessica Schilder there from the Netherlands had some good early throws this season. Wasn't quite sure where she is. She automatic qualified. Good to see Gong. Gong had to do a couple throws there. Gong, the elder stateswoman now, defending Olympic champion, has all the medals from the Olympics. Not quite sure where she is. I don't know if she can step up. We've seen Raven Saunders is back, coming back from her silver medalist from the last Olympics, but also coming back from whereabouts violation over the last year or so. Finally getting in, but didn't get the automatic qualifiers. So it's only 3 women getting the automatic qualifying number, which is not easy. You have to throw 1910, I believe. Ross there from the United States. I like her too. Not sure about the technique, but I didn't get to see all 3 throws, but we'll see. But the big thing I want to go into, and if you're of the Jamaican persuasion, then maybe that's where we can talk a little bit about it, is Danielle Thomas Dodd, a woman that's been throwing for Jamaica for a very long time, a woman that, has been on the medal podium for the country. She finishing in the 13th position. I think this is probably second time now in the Olympics. This happened maybe 12 or so the last time. I have to go and check. And also Cameron not making it through, also, but throwing a season best. And, it's unfortunate, 1812 is very close to the 1816 from Johansson from Sweden, but that's one of those things. But that's not the issue that Thomas Dodd is upset with. She felt like she was in the kind of shape. And she made it clear on a couple of interviews post the event that she was not happy with her situation in Paris. And again, it brings up the administrative side of things that we all know about. And this time she was hammering not one side of the administration, but both. So she was hammering the Jamaica Athletics Administrative Association, the J3A is there, and also the Jamaica Olympic Association. And for Cameron in particular, her biggest problem was what she thinks is the mistreatment of field event athletes by those associations. And not necessarily only at this Olympics, but it seems as if she's saying it's something that's a long time that's been happening. Well, it's not new. Some of us know this, but let's not talk about that. Let's talk about her feeling there, because she's saying she just didn't get the support she needed. She's there for almost 3 weeks or however long there in Paris in the village, and she doesn't have access to her coach, and because didn't have any accreditation, didn't get access to give him accreditation in order for her to be there at the training session. And this is a very challenging aspect, especially for the technical events. And for every event, everybody wants to be comfortable, have access to their coach, and it's a challenge, I suspect. And she felt like she didn't get it, and she talked more, not just that she couldn't just go and throw these things, but also the kind of integral role her coach would have played in the warm-up session, in the pre-preparation as you get at the final part. I think she even mentioned on the interview that the person helps with her as a masseuse rather, so help by providing some massage services when necessary. And she's felt it was a clear frustration. You saw the hurt in the tone of her voice this morning, and she felt as if all the work put in there went down the drain. And I want to point out that it's important that athletes get access to their coach, and I think this is something that's not necessarily only the fault of the national associations, but it's also something that the IOC and the local organizing committee there in France, led by Tony Estinger, they have created a situation where it becomes difficult to get a lot of people in Paris, right? Because the Olympics is being it's done in a way where there's just not enough space. They weren't going to spend the money to create bigger villages. They didn't. And in a way, you can understand why, because Olympics are expensive to operate, and it's a big event. It's the most complicated sporting event in the world to pull off, because usually everything is in one spot, or 90% of things are in one spot. Obviously, they're the tour, the cycling, the road part moves differently. The what am I saying? They do different parts in Paris, and obviously the stuff happens in Tahiti, but in general, it's concentrated in one city. And I think that's also contributed to the amount of people that can actually get there. Not only the athletes, because we've seen it from the athlete standpoint when it comes to the relays, and I'll get to that in a second, Truth. But it creates this problem for athletes, and I don't know. You just go there to the village and you sit for how many weeks? It's almost like it's probably best that you don't come in until a couple of days before, or enough to acclimatize. You get to Europe somehow, or you get to another part of France. You know, heck, go to the Champagne region. Go to Epernay and find some place and pop the shot put and have a glass of Blanc de Blanc or something like that, and then get down on that train to Paris in a few maybe a couple of days before competition. I don't know, because that's really problematic for a lot of athletes. They're not, and in a situation like the shot put is difficult, right? And you see a lot of athletes running over to the side. Coaches are allowed to come in when, especially for the events, the field events, and so on. They can talk to them and they can run over and say something and give them instant tips. Some people are watching stuff on the phone or the video, but it's a difference, right? And she Thomas Dodd, just to end it, was upset. She did not like that. She felt like she was just hanging around trying to do everything on her own, which is not something that she normally would have done. So, and to her point, much of the credit so far at this Olympics, or the joy rather, put it that way, if you're from Jamaica, is coming from the field events. So yeah, I feel bad for her. I feel bad for all the athletes who haven't gotten an opportunity to just get access to their coach. And it's not only her, it's happening across a lot of other athletes as well. Let me get back to the comment section here. Truth says the Jamaican men 4x1 had such a bad baton exchange on the last handover. Yeah, that was shocking. I can get the results up there. Let's start with the men since you brought it up, Truth. And they were in heat number 2. I'll try to put that up on the screen in a second. All right, so won by the People's Republic of China in 38-24. So it's not a particularly fast heat. France in second, 38-34. Canada there, 38-39. And Jamaica there in 38-45. The exchanges cost them for sure. It wasn't really that good. I mean, maybe Akeem could have gone out a little bit quicker. Maybe something closer to like a 10:49 would have been more useful, but it's not terrible. I think he handed off either first or second. I think he was first when he handed off, I believe. I have to go check it again. But it's, yeah, the exchanges were poor. And I guess Kishane Thompson, by the time he got it, just didn't have enough in it. It wasn't smooth enough for him to take down. Uh, who was it? DeGrasse, I think, on the anchor or so, right? Yeah. It That one I didn't anticipate, to be honest with you. I felt like the Jamaica team here, in the absence of a oblique Seville, was more than good enough to get to the final. And so this has been a while. This is what it's tough, right? Because you go back to how many Olympics, and they're in the final, they're winning it, world records, that kind of stuff. And this time they don't qualify for the final, and I really don't. Yeah, this just didn't happen. And unfortunately, I guess the speed isn't good enough to accommodate for that, like in the context of the United States or so. But 38:45 is not particularly a great time anyway. So there's some trouble there. I don't know what the inquest will look like. People might be complaining. Thank you, everybody, for coming on and for joining. Just doing a recap of the morning session and talking about some of the unexpected performances and gripe. Going in, obviously, United States will win this or should win this as long as they get the baton around. They didn't look as good as you wanted to. That exchange from Coleman to Fred Curley could have been costly. Pretty much ran into each other. But those guys, foot speed is their thing. 37:47, fantastic time. It's a really great time there, regardless. And so they'll bring in Kung Fu Kenny, obviously, and Noah Lyles if everything goes well with them, providing that they're not injured. So the relay will just Coleman to Curly should be the same order, then to Bednarak, and then Lyles should anchor that. Those guys could threaten a very low 37 time, or you never know, even sub 37 if they get the baton around. The challenge is you don't really need to you don't need to utilize the zone as well as you might want to in terms of extending it. You want to make sure you're exchanging the zone, but you don't have to do much there. You just have to basically get everybody going through. South Africa looking good there. Simbini running a nice leg on the anchor there. Great Britain also there. Their team is interesting. No Zarnell Hughes for them. He's been having some issues. And Japan again. Japan usually knows how to get in there with some interesting baton exchanges. So they're there in the final, along with Italy, the defending champions, also making it in with a small queue. So the benefit of that first heat there was a lot of speed, and I guess they're gone through there. United States should win this comfortably. Not quite sure where the rest of the medals will go. Depends on, can Great Britain do something? Will South Africa show up again? Probably. They could do it if they get it right. They have some good guys there. Maswangani, obviously, as you know, he ran in the 200 meters as well. He's pretty decent. So if they do the exchange as well again, they should be able to find their way on the podium in some capacity. I want to think Great Britain can get on the podium, but I don't know. It just depends. Yeah, and I don't have anybody from Heat 2 probably challenging for a medal at all. I'll get back to your comments. What's going on here? Superfan says, what happened to Jamaica in 4x1? Well, men, one, they didn't qualify, and it's just, yeah, they needed to do better exchanges. The exchange is not good. Yeah. I don't know if there's been an explanation since. So I can't really say, to be honest with you. Just poor exchanges. And when you need better foot speed too if you're going to make mistakes with the baton. And in this case, I don't know what kind of shape the other guys were in. If you go back to it, you have to, yeah, you probably need somebody to run Maybe you need Walker to go sub 9 on the leg. I don't know if he was ever gonna be possible to do that. That's a lot to ask for, but if he got like 9 flat on that backstretch, or he went 8.99 or so, potentially the lead would have been bigger. But I don't know. Or you wanted Thompson didn't look like he got into his running either, if I'm being honest with you. Once he got it, it just didn't look. It didn't look free. But that's just how it looked to me. I don't know. It didn't. It didn't look like the relaxed Thompson you would anticipate, and wasn't coming quick enough to overtake those guys, and guys that he's pretty much faster than by a good distance too. So yeah, but it's. I think it goes down to the baton exchanges not being properly executed, and that's how it works. Really tough time there. Michelle, how you doing? I think Noah should focus on the 200. Yeah, he's gonna run the 200 tonight. Noah didn't run today, and then after that, he'll be in the final of the 4x1. So I think he'll be fine. Yeah, yeah. Agro, how you doing? Messi baton exchange. Messi baton change for Jamaica men's 4x1 due to lack of practice. All I can say, something has to be done about the head of the JAA and JO. They must go. Yeah, there needs to be some reevaluation of the administrative situation as it relates to those two together. As I've mentioned before on the live, everybody I've talked to who covered that in Jamaica, because I don't live there obviously, but I speak to some journalists, and they don't see what's happening. They don't want to talk about it. They just think it's the most idiotic thing you could see, in terms of it's not reasonable in terms of the relationship. It's not a good working one, at least from the people I've talked. Some people haven't necessarily written about it or said it on TV that way, but so I won't I can't say who told me anything, but in confidence, they're like, it's just nonsense. What I would say too is maybe the stakeholders, which are the broader constituents of the people who consume the funds, they probably should demand for a lot more transparency. You want to know how these things work, more openness or better explanation, because it's been you can go to an Olympics and underperform. There's not an issue, right? Like that can happen. You could do your best and still not get anywhere close, but there are some challenges that happens at these games. Everything from where the training should go, to who should pay for it, and to getting accreditation and coaching and happy with the village, and all of that kind of stuff is not easy to think through, right? But someone has to do it. This is the Olympics. So you have to have everything figured out long in advance, and contingencies when things go wrong, because something undoubtedly will go wrong. So we talk about athletes not being in and around the area, even if you can't get in the village. So everybody knew that you're not going to be able to pull all of these athletes in the village. World Athletics had little power on IOC to extend it to 6 people as normal in a relay pool. So what's the plan for that, right? That's the challenge. You have to figure it out, and it's shambolic that some of these things ultimately will impact the athletes, and it's there, right there. Be serious. The relay split all around are not real. It had GB runner, third runner going 9 seconds. I know, I get what you're saying. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to look at the splits there, and then usually, yeah, I know if you run the first, you're gonna run more than 100 anyway. So, or sometimes the backstretch guys get a little bit more. It just depends on how they use the zone. I didn't even look at a GB split this morning, but for the women, you think you're talking about, or for the men? Yeah. But I don't know. I think it's a situation where the baton exchanges didn't go well, and maybe Thompson could have run a better leg. But I have no idea. It's clearly their relays wasn't high priority this year for Jamaica. You didn't see it in the world relays is one of those things too. Hence why there's no 4x4 men at this Olympics. There's a lot of things that need to be sorted out, arrangements with administrators and coaches and so on. But I guess there might be an inquest. Yeah. Another comment coming here 37-47 for USA without Liza and Kenny is impressive. No, not great hand. It's more than impressive. You only have to go back less than 12 years ago or more. 37-40 used to be the world record, right? So it's extremely impressive to see how Coleman ran right into Fred Curley, because I don't know why Curley wasn't going. That was an interesting one there. Also, I think mentally for the United States, the biggest issue they have over the years is just thinking about, do we get this baton around? Can we get it around? They've made so many interesting mistakes. They've also revolutionized the way they think about their. I don't know if revolutionize is the same word, but they have a lot of camps. They have different relay coaches. They do things. They try to work with some athletes, and because they take it seriously. You can have a million camps and still fail. The problem is when you fail and don't have a million camps, then you can point to the lack of practice or whatever Agra was saying there today. You can't mess around with it. It's never easy to organize athletes together. It's never easy to know who will make a relay pool. I think it's easier to think about a relay pool in the context of smaller countries than, say, the United States, where there's a lot more athletes that could ultimately make a championship team. Yeah, you have to. Camps are needed. Something need to work out. But you also have to remember that when you think about a relay is secondary to most athletes, right? They think first about their individual thing, especially for top athletes. I guess if you know you're not strong enough and you're coming here to make sure you pull off a medal, then that's a different story. But I don't know. Yeah. But in the end, it's a good run for the USA, given that they just need to get the baton around. For the men and the women, it's easy money for the United States. If they don't win these things comfortably, then they would have royally messed this up. They can exchange. They should exchange early in the zone. They don't need to go extending the zone as best as they can, because they have so much foot speed that all they need is just safe handoffs and they'll win this and win it comfortably too. So I suspect that might be the message. Forget world records, forget anything like that, because world records really don't matter if you if you have the best team and drop the baton, right? Yeah. You can have the best team and not break the world record either. Like Jamaica in 2021 women's team should have broken the world record. You look at that team: Shelley, Fraser Price, Elaine, Kemba was running good at that point. What was she doing, like 10-9s or something? And she didn't run. Brianna was running 10. Like there's all these. They had enough people who you could work with that they should have broken the world record. It doesn't, but no one cares at the end of the day because the gold medal was around their neck. So yeah, good to hear that you're doing well, Michelle. Be Strong is saying the J and JOA still think it's the Bolt era where 6 or so men were running 9-7. The 4x1 needs to be fully stacked in every race. Yeah, I don't. The problem is they don't have anybody else right now, right? So Oblique didn't run. He did say after the 100 meters that injuries, right? So the same injury he went to see the doctor for repeated itself in the final. So not showing up suggests that, because they couldn't be resting him, right? There was no need to be resting him. He would have been well rested for a long period of time. Look at the US women. All of them showed up. They're going to just come back again. I agree with you. You have to look for situations where you create familiarity with crops of people who could definitely fill in situations where you just don't have the depth. So you would say a fit up. You look at the times that Akeem Blake was running this year. you look at the times, obviously, Seville is running and also Kishane Thompson. And you say with decent baton exchanges and you throw in one of these guys here, you could even throw in Brian Level if you wanted to, Walker or one of these guys, then you should be able to fight for a medal, right? You should be able to fight for a silver medal at the very least. But it didn't work. Morning to you too. Have a good day as well. Yeah. Had some I had a nice espresso this morning too. So yeah, thanks. Where's Sharika? Sad to see she wasn't around to run the 100 and 200. Could have made a different Olympics. Yeah, Sharika came to the Olympic Games. Unfortunately, at the last minute, she pulled out from the 100 meters, and then in the warm-up area of the 200 meters, she didn't show up. So subsequently, her championships is over. So whatever injury she picked up, which clearly is a hamstring-related injury, it caused significant problems for her to compete at the Olympics. And, she also started the season a bit late at different times, which also suggests that it's been a challenging season, primarily to injury. So let's see if she can get healthy again and come back for the Tokyo World Championships next year. She's defending champion over 200 meters, so she gets an automatic bye. And yeah, sometimes it happens, right? It happens. Yeah, the IOC is an issue, and them and the local organizers. So I don't blame countries for trying to do the Olympics on the cheap. This has been done on the cheap. Another way to think about it, it's been done economically. They've tried to use the money wisely because Olympic Games are extremely costly. Olympic Games create a lot of white elephants. They create a lot of infrastructure that people have to pay for years to come. Usually those are the citizens of those countries. Those economic benefits that you often think are coming from the Olympics don't come the way that you want. So when you start to build infrastructure, you want to have some way to repurpose them in interesting ways. Luckily for France, they have the Stade de France, which was built for the 1998 World Cup, which had to be built because at that time when they were hosting the World Cup in 1998, they did not have a capacity-sized stadium that FIFA required to host the finals. So they built Stade de France. It was a well-built stadium that can still stand getting close to 20 years now, right? So they've done some changes there, but it's still not a perfect stadium, but they had the foresight to build it with athletics in mind. The seats can go up, so you lose some capacity here in the Olympics. Also, changes have happened subsequently from World Athletics having 2 runways for the long jump is now required, or triple jump. So they had to figure out a way. So they took out another layer of seat in order to facilitate that stuff. But also, Stade de France doesn't provide the best of warm-up facilities if you were to build a brand new modern Olympic stadium. But why do that unless you have a purpose for it? And they only build 2 new facilities in France. Everything else is pop-up. Eiffel Stadium is pop-up. Everything, and it looks okay, but it also creates interesting stuff. And then if you have to spend money on infrastructure development too, those things can have long-term impact if you're upgrading transportation systems and so on, but it's not cheap. And Olympics are money suck, especially on the taxpayers in those countries. And you have to pay for it at some point. It has to be paid off for, So Montreal just paid for 1976, 10 years ago. That's when they're done paying for the stadium. Outrageous. It's probably the worst example I can bring up. The Olympics or even the World Cup in Brazil has not led to the benefits that they say it was supposed to be. I've been there. I've talked to the academics on this and the journalists who work on that stuff. The Brazil World Cup didn't even get some of the transportation stuff done in time for the World Cup. And that's the part or the legacy that should be benefiting these emerging countries. Ultimately, if you really want these things to go and have the best of best space, we're going to be upset with where these games end up going. It's going to repeatedly go to the nation states with the capacity. The United States can do it all the time. They can host mostly every major event without much fuss. Australia, a few places. Are you going to go to these Gulf states who can then pump in a lot of money because they have it, and they also want to do it for ornamental prestige. They want to do it for showing that they're ready. So you can't compare the money China spent on Beijing to some other places, or to say London, because there's a different there's reasons beyond just hosting that those nation states have. And I don't want to get into all of that right now, but yeah, it goes back to, it creates challenges, but it's not a new challenge per se, Michelle. It's more like I knew about it. So I told you that I'm gonna cut off your left foot from a year ago, but you're still gonna show up. So how are you gonna work around it? And that's the foresight part that some countries royally missed out on. Yeah. Uh, where am I now? Got good comments coming in. Thanks. Could could you comment on why Kishane took so long to get going on the anchor? Did the problem start with the final exchange? Chris is asking that. It looks that way. It looks like he probably was waiting. I don't know. It didn't go out quick enough either. It does look like a lack of practice, right? So he has to go out. He has to start getting into running. The incoming runner has to meet him at a point where when the arm is extended, it should go in smoothly, hit the pump, and you don't lose any time. The moment you have to slow down, or if you go too fast and you have to do anything, it's like starting again. So you need a running start that's fluid enough to get you into the running. He's a big guy too, so it takes a little bit to get into the running. I think it boils down to just maybe they don't have the work around with the exchanges. Probably didn't go well. Yeah, yeah. Sharika had a hamstring stuff. She did pull up. She suffered it in a continental tour prior to the Olympic Games. She was leading in the 200 meters, and then it didn't look good. Michelle says some of the runners are tired due to different events. There should be a 2 month break before the Olympics, so at least can have enough time to train together. Apparently, well, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. I know what you're saying, but it's probably would never happen because these athletes also have to run to make money. Who's going to pay for that downtime when they're not there? It's just not going to work, Yeah. Agro saying our female high jumper also complain about lack of access of a coach. Can't they have one coach for each field event to serve the athletes? Oh yeah, Salamar Distan there. Yeah, but the problem too is that that coach who you're gonna say, they have coaches there, and they'll say these coaches can give advice on all sort of stuff, but if you've been coached by a particular coach all your life, or for the to preparation to come in to step on another coach, and that's a different story, right? Like I don't think it works as smoothly as how you would think it should, right? It's like I'm being prepared by Coach Flo. I mean, luckily he's there. Say use him as an example. That's the first coach that comes to mind. So if you are the jumper from Jamaica, who and he's preparing you, and then all of a sudden someone else is telling you something else, it doesn't compute. They're not absorbing it the same way. I think that is more challenging than it looks. Yeah. It is very challenging there, and and a lot athletes work off routine too. They work off comfort. Some people can break out of it, some can't. And the field events are extremely technical. Sometimes it's some unseen stuff because you also want to get the best advice from people who have been watching you all year, and they might be like, "Oh, you're like adjust this by a cm, or your run up needs to just be slightly adjusted." I know most people are sitting in the couch, or all other coaches can probably see that, but is the athlete going to listen to you because they don't know you, they don't trust you like that? Yeah. Yeah. Any young sprinters stick out that you haven't noticed? I have to go think through that. I don't know yet. It's the top one off the top of my head. Is hard to see. Uh, there's some people coming through. Some Ogazi there for in 400 from Nigeria. I like him. Yeah, I'll think through that some more. Maybe after the Olympics we can think through. Yeah. Be Strong says B.I. Strong says, countries go broke after Olympics, so I understand not building new facilities. LA will be using mostly existing facilities. Yeah, they will be doing that as well. Also, it's just a bigger place too. It's a place that can actually uh, hold a capacity for stuff, right? Like, eh, they'll do a lot of infrastructure work too, but you can get into LA in multiple places, right? LAX, you get into Wayne, whatever counties, whatever those other airports are. They're not, Burbank. Access into the US is big time. You can do it by road as well. You don't have to go through that. So you fly to Vegas and fly over, or even take a bloody bus. It's just easy, right? So yeah, Paris is small, man. And the infrastructure is very good, but it's not the trains, the this, that. It's not easy to navigate. And where they're doing that stuff is just, they're putting it in major spots like for tourist site, but except you're getting 8 million people flooded in, right? So, and a lot of athletes, it's hard, and administrators and this, that. Ultimately, I think it's okay, right? But it creates some kind of challenge that you have to know. Yeah, the Frederick twins from Trinidad, they're good. We've seen them for the last few years. I think they'll come on obviously at some point. Yeah. Yeah, there's other people too. There's some, but I just off the top of my head, I can't. That's hard to come through, but no. So yeah, that's where we are in the morning session. There's repechage rounds that happen in 800 meters. The Jamaican didn't qualify. If people are interested in that, Navaski Anderson, he ran like 1:46 and change. Wasn't that great. But yeah, later on, obviously, I'll be back again. We'll have an exciting evening of track and field, I believe. I don't know where the medals will go for some of these things. The 110-meter hurdles gonna be fire. Hansa Parchment out there in lane 2 by himself. Eopis, Roberts, Broadbell, Holloway, Orlando Bennett, Crittenden, and Murtaki. Murtaki is a kid that I think is one for the future too. I like him a lot. Didn't anticipating him getting in over his Japanese compatriot, but he did. Yeah, that's gonna be a fire race, guys. But probably the biggest race of the night for me is gonna be the 400-meter hurdle final. Sydney versus Femke, Rochelle Clayton, Anna Cockrell, Jasmine Jones. Even the French athlete would probably want to get in the mix. I don't know if she's good enough, but those, I would say Jones, Clayton, Anna Cockrell, somewhere they're thinking about the third place, and the other two probably run something. Who knows? This might be a world record tonight again. Potentially 2 women running sub 51. We've never seen that in the same race. We've only seen 2 women gone sub 51 anyway. Sydney and Femke just before the Olympics. Femke already having a brilliant Olympics, running off monster 47.9 leg on the relay. Yeah. You too, Michelle. Thanks for that. So yeah, we'll be back later on to do the watch along. I appreciate you guys coming through and chopping it up with me, and for listening. And thank you for liking and subscribing. I'll see you later on. Bye-bye.